Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got the NFL free agency tier list. Yes, I'll be going through all the 2026 free agents. I'm just keeping it to skill position players only for the sake of time. But if you guys want a defense and all the other positions, please comment below and let me know. I'm happy to make another one. But before we get into it, I would love it if you guys could hit the subscribe button. And without further ado, let's start it off here with the S tier. Number one player is going to be George Pickens. Of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if Jerry's going to open up his bank account to actually pay him, but I don't think they're going to let him walk out the door for nothing. So I would assume he gets franchise tagged. I know there's already reports that he hasn't even reached out to his agent yet. The Cowboys haven't, which is never a good sign as far as contract negotiations. I just think it's going to get real messy if they don't sign him to a long-term deal. I don't think George Pickens is the type of guy to just be thrilled with a franchise tag, especially after the year that he had. He really stepped up when CD was hurt, and there's going to be lots and lots of suitors going for George Pickens, but I overall think the Cowboys keep him in-house. And then at number two, we've got Breece Hall, another guy with high major potential here. Similar to Pickens on the Steelers, he was just never utilized correctly, and I think on the Jets, he never gets the national media respect that he really deserves. I think he's firmly like a top 8 running back in the NFL, and it's just a matter of time before he ends up on a contender. As far as the Jets are concerned, I'm not sure that they really need to franchise tag him. I'm not sure what that serves for them, especially with no QB, Dante Moore going back to college. Pick number 2 is going to have to be Ruben Bain or Arvell Reese, one of the edge rushers up front. So you're going to have to find like a transition quarterback, whether it's Malik Willis or Kyler Murray, a guy that you're not really fully believing in. So I don't know what Breece Hall would serve as far as purpose for your team. So hopefully they let him go and spread his wings, because I think teams like Houston or Kansas City would be really interesting, especially the Chiefs, just because Breece Hall went to college in Iowa State. Wouldn't be shocked if he wants to go back there. They obviously had a lot of trade interest at the deadline. So I think that match makes perfect sense. And if so, then Breece Hall would skyrocket up any rankings. He would probably be a top 5 running back in 2026. But we shall see. Following up Breece Hall is another running back. It's going to be Kenneth Walker. He's just been dominating in the NFL playoffs, and that's pretty much been the recipe that people have been beating the drum for. It's that he's capable of this bell cow workload, but they just continue to use Charbonnet inside the red zone, which, I mean, I'm not going to complain too much because Charbonnet is very useful and he is efficient in the red zone. It's not like he's not scoring the touchdowns, but Kenneth Walker, I think we all realized, had a much more deep bag as far as a running back is concerned, and now he's finally being able to showcase it, and it's been amazing to see. He can hit the home run on any single play, and if you just give him 15 to 20 touches, he's going to bust one loose. So I like Kenneth Walker. I don't think Seattle's going to let him go. I thought there was maybe a path where Walker gets pried away just due to salary cap reasons for Seattle, but with Charbonnet missing probably the start of next year with that torn ACL, I think that completely changes things, and I would be stunned if Walker's anywhere but Seattle, especially after this playoff run. And then at number 4, we've got Travis Etienne. So we're now out of the S tier and into the A tier. I think Etienne's just a little bit slightly lower than Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, and that's he's yes, maybe 1 year older. However, I just don't think he's as explosive as the guys above him. But that being said, he is still the 4th best free agent as far as skill positions go, and that's just because he really broke out in 2025. This past year, him and Trevor Lawrence have that college connection, and it was really on display. He can do it in the rushing game and in the receiving game. That's one of my favorite parts of his game. It's just that safety check down blanket, and he can make guys miss in space, and you're not going to let him go because of that chemistry he has with the quarterback. He already said it in a post-game interview. He doesn't want to go play in the cold. So I think Jacksonville keeps him around, especially after they traded Tank Bigsby before the season. This had to be their plan to sign Travis Etienne to a longer-term deal. I don't think he's going to get as much money as like the Kyren Williams or James Cook got, but I think he wants to stay in-house in Jacksonville, and then maybe they share the carries with Tootin, who looked very explosive in 2025. But we will remain to see that aspect of the carry split. But number 5, we are switching positions to our first tight end here. It's going to be Kyle Pitts. 2025 was finally the breakout of our fantasy legend, Kyle Pitts, one of my favorite guys every year to talk myself into being the tight end 1. However, he was the tight end 2 this year, and I think he just earned himself a big payday. The Falcons are going to try and franchise tag him, but a lot of teams are going to pry him off the Falcons. I know Stefanski wants to use him in this pass game. He loves using the guys like Njoku in the past. He's a big play-action coordinator, so this would make perfect sense to keep him around. However, teams like Tennessee or these teams with young quarterbacks that want to develop a tight end alongside them, maybe New England as well, are teams to monitor. And that's just because you want your young quarterback to find out if he's actually worthy of the pick you drafted him with. So why not surround him with a guy like Kyle Pitts, who maybe we're just scratching at the surface of what he can truly become. He had 1,000 yards as a rookie. He totaled over 900 this past year. And in games without Drake London, he looked really capable of being the number one on a team. So Kyle Pitts comes in at number 5. And following him is going to be Mike Evans. Yeah, you're probably wondering he should be a little bit higher here. However, I'm taking his age into effect here. I know there's been some rumors that think that he could actually move on from Tampa Bay. I'm kind of in the opposite direction. I think Mike Evans is one of those loyalty guys. At this point in his career, I don't see him switching up teams. I think he might honestly be a Hall of Famer just due to that 1,000-yard streak. Especially getting the Super Bowl helps his chances. But if guys like Bill Belichick can't get in, I don't know. I digress. But Mike Evans is still one of the best deep threats in the NFL and red zone monsters. So I think he likes that connection with Baker. It's not like they're moving on from quarterback. And that's kind of my main reason for him staying in Tampa. Probably on a 1 or 2 year deal, lower salary, but he can still get it done in the games that matter the most. Has missed time with injury in recent years, but I'm still going to keep on betting on Mike Evans. He slots in at number 6, and then following him is going to be our first quarterback here. It's going to be Daniel Jones. If you talked to me in like week 8, Daniel Jones would have been like number 1 or 2 on this list. However, coming off the torn Achilles, I'm not too bullish. I think he's going to probably miss a few to even like half of the season next year. You want to be fully healthy and recovered coming off the Achilles. So I'm not sure what the Colts QB plan is going to be, but that's going to hurt guys like Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren. But they got to keep him in Indy because you traded all those first-round picks to get Sauce Gardner in the hopes that Daniel Jones was your savior at quarterback. So I think they're going to bring him back, and it would be a little bit of a slimy move for Daniel Jones to walk out of the door, especially after they tried to build everything around him. So I think he goes back to Indy on probably a team-friendly deal. Maybe like 2 or 3 years, $20 million average, which is significantly lower than kind of the contract we were expecting him to get earlier in the season. But he's going to get paid, no doubt about it. And then at number 8, we're switching to the B tier again. We got Wan'Dale Robinson. He's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. Yes, he's under 6 feet. However, he was the first or the shortest player in NFL history to record over 1,000 receiving yards. And he did that this past season in 2025 with both Jackson Dart, Jameis Winston as well. And I thought we saw something with Jameis there where he was actually targeting Wan'Dale downfield. He was always known as just like the slot, quick, intermediate target guys. But when Jameis was quarterback, well, there's one thing you can learn about your wide receivers. You get to really know everything about them. Jameis was hyper-targeting him all over the field, and we were able to see that he can go downfield. He can win on the deep ball routes. So I think that's very good and optimistic for the Giants' future outlook. I think they're going to try and keep him with everything they can, but teams like New Orleans, another team with a young quarterback with a lot of money to play with, and pairing him with Chris Olave would be absolutely beautiful. But I think the Giants are going to make a strong push to keep him around. I think you want to surround Dart with as many weapons as possible, and you really have 3 solid wide receivers with Neighbors, Wan'Dale, and Darius Slayton. All 3 guys are capable of doing everything as far as the route tree. So I like Wan'Dale, and I truly think he's one of the most underrated players that not a lot of people are going to talk about this free agency, but he'll make a big difference. Staying in the B tier, we've got Javonte Williams at number 9. Just like Travis Etienne, a big resurgence in 2025. Double-digit touchdowns and was overall just playing super physical. Lots of trucks in the open field, and then inside the 20 was like an automatic touchdown for him. Great goal line running back. I think Jerry's going to keep him around. I don't think he's going to command that much of a salary, but I think for the betterment of his career, he's going to want to stay in Dallas. This is a top 3 offense, and he's getting fed like a bell cow. So I think Javonte will stay kind of in Dallas, but they might decrease his workload a little bit. As you saw, he kind of got injury-riddled towards the end of the season. So if Dallas wants to make any type of playoff push, you want to keep him fresh going forward. So don't be shocked if there's a little bit more of Jadon Blue or if they bring back Miles Sanders to get involved. But no doubt, I fully trust the Cowboys front office to bring back Javonte and continue his dominance. Number 10, we've got Alec Pierce, another Colt onto our free agent list. And this is a guy that I think will actually leave his team. Not by choice, but he's just going to command a lot of attention in free agency. teams like New England, San Francisco, all these teams, pretty much any team, because he can be a wide receiver too, and a lot of teams are going to pay him like a wide receiver one because he's shown spurts of like really, really dominating games. Despite having quarterback play of Joe Flacco and Riley Leonard down the stretch, he looked very, very good. He's led the league in ADOT 2 straight years, and he can do it over the top and in the red zone. I'm very bullish on Alec Pierce. I think he's one of the best kind of overall wide receivers that not too many people talk about. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands, but he's going to be a steal, whoever gets him. And then we've got another guy in the B tier. This is kind of all like the wide receiver 2 range as far as the free agency tiers go. Another guy with Romeo Doubs, who has shown spurts of being very, very explosive, over 100 yards against the Bears in that playoff game. He can do it when you need him the most. I think the Packers will try and hang on to him. I know Jordan Love says it year in, year out that he's his favorite red zone target. And they love running that just kind of on the goal line inside of 5 yards. It's the Romeo Doubs, either a fade or a slant, and he always gets his goal line targets. So I would have a hard time believing they're going to let him go, but it's the same kind of crop of wide receivers, or the NFL teams that are going to be pursuing wide receivers. I think the same applies to Romeo Doubs, whether it's the Titans, the Saints, the Patriots. All these teams want more depth at wide receiver. Even the Jets can get involved. I think Doubs is going to probably be in that like $10 to $15 million per year contract-wise. I think he's a good value because he can do it on every level. And it'll be very, very interesting to see where he goes, especially with the Packers spending so much money on defense. I'm not sure if they'll have the money to be able to keep him around. And then I think this is our last guy in Tier B. It's going to be Rico Dowdle. Similar to Etienne and Javonte, he was kind of sent for dead in 2024, but in 2025, totally different guy. Got to Carolina, and when Chuba missed time, he was averaging over like 170 rushing yards per game. And he even continued to dominate when Chuba was back. However, I don't think he was the biggest fan of them still involving Chuba Hubbard as soon as Rico proved that he was the RB1. So it'll be interesting because the Panthers know that they already paid Chuba Hubbard. They have Jonathan Brooks, who, yes, has missed the past 2 seasons due to injury, but they did spend high draft capital on. So I think they're going to move forward with Chuba and Brooks as kind of that 1A, 1B running back style. And then Rico Dowdle is free to roam and see wherever team can give him the most money because he wants to be a bell cow. Teams like the Jets or the Texans that are willing to just kind of pay up for Rico on like a 2 to 3 year deal and really just commit to him being the running back of the future as far as the intermediate future, to give him 20 plus touches because he's really capable of it. He's a big body back. He kind of wears you down as the game goes on. And I think it'll be interesting. However, he is a little bit older than most of these other running backs. He is 28 years old, so he's going to be 29 upcoming. And that is signs for a little bit of a concern for the running back position. They seem to taper off as it goes through that kind of stretch closer to 30, but Rico Dowdle proved in 2025 that that's no reason for concern, but something to monitor for sure. And then back into the C tier here, we've got Malik Willis, our second quarterback of this free agency, and Malik Willis was also probably not going to get any starting contract before this year. However, with Jordan Love missing time and kind of he got concussed early in the game, Malik Willis came in, won them the game. And then in the 2 games where Jordan Love missed and Malik Willis started, he just looked absolutely impressive. Both in the air and on the ground. That game against Baltimore, you probably left thinking that Malik Willis could be a very, very good starting quarterback. However, I do think he's going to get very overpaid because of those 2 games. Yeah, I'm not saying the Baltimore Ravens were a joke, but that defense was severely depleted in that game where Willis really showed out. I think a lot has to do with the coaching scheme of Matt LaFleur, but it'll be interesting because I think he's going to have a high market of teams wanting to give him the starting shot because with only really one starting quarterback in this year's draft being Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders, all those teams at the top of the draft that need a quarterback or already abandoned their quarterback from 2025 are left in this limbo period. And I think guys like Mac Jones and Malik Willis are going to actually get another gig. So teams to watch out for are Miami because they just got Jeff Hafley, who came from the Green Bay Packers. He was an account executive. Now he's the GM for the Dolphins. Or now he's the head coach for the Dolphins, but the Packers account executive is also now the Dolphins GM. So they're kind of just building the Packers in Miami. So don't be surprised if they have their eyes on another Packer player here in Malik Willis. But other teams to note are the Arizona Cardinals, the Jets as well. Those are just some teams to make sure you're aware of because Malik Willis could be heading there, and we shall see. Number 14, we got Rashid Shaheed, another guy because the Seahawks are playing so well. I don't think he'll get moved off of the Seahawks. However, I think it was a great trade for them. They got great value, not only in a wide receiver, but in special teams. He's one of the best kick and punt returners we have in the NFL. He's truly electric, so any team's going to be lucky to have him, but I think he ends up in Seattle. And don't be surprised if he's a little bit more involved in 2026. I think being traded at the deadline, he never got fully integrated into the wide receiver 2 role. So in 26, I'd expect him to take a little bit more pressure off of JSN, similar to how he did in New Orleans, being more than just the deep threat that he's being into this role, these 2025 playoffs. And then following up Shaheed is going to be David Njoku, another tight end here. It's getting really interesting in Cleveland because I think they're going to push him out the door. I thought he would be a Brown for life, but with Harold Fannin just looking absolutely unguardable and a beast after the catch, there's no real need to have two of the same guys as far as him and Njoku, who kind of play the same. They're both kind of lean on that after the catch, short targets, and then kind of make their guys miss and get upfield. So I think Harold Fannin is going to be the one for Cleveland going forward. Teams to watch for David Njoku. I think Tampa is in real need of a tight end. And they're kind of in that win now period with Baker getting older and all of their Mike Evans getting older. Their defense is pretty old and experienced. So I think Njoku fits more rather than a young tight end like Kyle Pitts. So don't be shocked if Njoku ends up in Tampa Bay. But there are still a handful of other teams that would love to have Njoku as their tight end. And then we go into the D tier. It's Jauan Jennings. Yes, I'm a little bit less bullish on Jennings than other people are. I think his antics on the field are a little bit much, and he continues to kind of get older, and he struggled staying on the field. I know that's a trait of most of the 49ers. However, he did have a fully healthy 2026 for the most part after missing a few practices and games early in the season. But outside of that, he was a wide receiver 1 going forward. And even in the playoff game, he was heavily targeted. Kind of that alpha wide receiver while Ricky Pearsall was gone. I don't think the 49ers have enough money to keep him. I think the Titans are really interesting just because he went to college in Tennessee, in Knoxville. So don't be shocked if they pursue him to be the wide receiver 1, maybe some veteran action for Cam Ward to throw the ball to because he really doesn't have anyone outside of Calvin Ridley. So I like Jennings moving on from San Francisco and then moving forward with Ricky Pearsall and maybe another draft asset or whoever they can trade Brandon Ayuk for. Following up Jennings is going to be Tyler Algier. Speaking of underrated players, Algier is firmly at the top of that list for me as far as running backs are concerned. I think he's capable of a bell cow role, and this is kind of the biggest market as far as teams wanting a running back we've seen in recent years. So teams like the Saints, yeah, I know Chicago wants more running back depth as well, even though they have Swift and Monangai. If you're able to save some money with Swift and just move forward with Algier, other teams to make note of, Houston needs a running back. All these teams like the Jets as well. I think getting him, even if you're going to use him in a committee, he's proven to be very efficient with another running back in the system. But I think he's capable of much more than that. So if the Saints were to pursue him, I think he would go crazy. In games with he has like more than 15 touches, he's very explosive. Historically, he averages over 4.3 yards per carry. That's nothing to kind of shake your head at because he's really explosive, and inside the goal line, he's very effective. I know Bijan fantasy owners will hate me for saying it, but he finds a way to score. I'm not saying Bijan couldn't score, but it's working, so that's why I see that Algier was always on the field. But it'll be interesting. He's a big name to watch in the running back market. Number 18, we got Kenneth Gainwell, another guy. However, his kind of more role is that third down receiving work. He actually had more catches than DK Metcalf in 2025. I really like Gainwell. I think he might move on from Pittsburgh strictly due to finding a better contract with Pittsburgh already paying Jaylen Warren and probably wanting to integrate their rookie Caleb Johnson into the offense. I wouldn't be shocked if they move on from Gainwell. Maybe a return to Philly as Saquon continues to age, but all those running back needy teams or any team with a star running back, if you're able to kind of push off stress from your running back and keep him fresh for the playoffs, that's what any team is really looking for. So even if the Cowboys have some extra money and you bring back Javonte and Gainwell, I think that would be a great combo. But any team would be lucky to have Gainwell. He's one of the best veterans we have in the NFL as far as the running back room, and he can do everything in the receiving game. He's a short dump off targets like we saw with Rodgers, but he could also go deep and kind of take that linebacker to school and go 30 yards for a wheel route touchdown. So it'll be interesting. And then following him is going to be Debo at number 19. Yes, I'm a little bit lower on Debo. I think he's kind of hitting that turn of being quote-unquote washed, but his play style is a little bit reckless, and as you age, I don't think his play style fits with kind of his body anymore. the end arounds and making guys miss an open space. I think he's more of like a slot role guy now, where you're just going to try and get him in wide receiver screens and see what he can do. He doesn't have the same explosiveness, but I think a return to San Francisco would make a lot of sense. And I say that because he went to Washington in the hopes of like contending for a Super Bowl, but with that window probably over now because they need so much help on defense, don't be shocked if Debo tries to make 1 or 2 more years out of his career with a contender to chase that Super Bowl dream that he truly deserves after heartbreak in more than one Super Bowl so far. And then following him, we've got the E tier. Yeah, spoiler alert, I don't have anyone in the F tier. It just felt wrong as far as free agents are concerned. I could put the draft guys in the F tier, but for free agents, I'm not trying to hurt any of their stock. They're all at least E or above. So these are the top 24 guys, but we got Dallas Goedert here at number 20. A great tight end. I don't think Philly has the money to really keep him in town. I know you would probably think that he'd be an Eagle for life, but a lot of these guys, he's not probably willing to take like a minimum to stay in Philly. So other teams are going to pursue him. I mentioned Tampa earlier. New England's always looking to run the 2 tight end personnel with him and Hunter Henry would be very interesting. And all these teams that really struggle to get production, we said Tennessee earlier as well. Maybe Miami is in the interest for another tight end as Darren Waller continues to get older. But it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He was very effective in the red zone. I don't know if that's just Kevin Patullo had like 5 total plays, and 2 of them were Dallas Goedert in the flat. But that being said, he was very effective, scoring multiple touchdowns every single game. So I like Dallas Goedert, but following him at number 21 is going to be Hollywood Brown, another wide receiver. He kind of fits more of the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. I'm not even going to list teams that would make sense because pretty much every team would make sense. He's a great field stretcher. He can get downfield, but he's also quick where you can run wide receiver screens for him. I think KC has a little bit too much depth at wide receiver that kind of do the same role. Him, Tyquan Thornton, and Xavier Worthy kind of play the same, so I think it's time to move on for him. But don't be shocked if he's more involved in whatever offense picks him up. Following him is going to be Isaiah Likely, one of the more kind of younger, more explosive kind of tight ends that we have in the NFL. But with them just re-signing Mark Andrews, I would have thought that Isaiah Likely would have been the one that they would have tried to keep around. But that one was certainly confusing, so it leads me to think that they might move on from Isaiah Likely if they can't pay the bill for him. So don't be surprised if teams inside the division, like if the Bengals want to get him, really any team could use Isaiah Likely because I think you're just scratching at the surface of what he really could be. He's young and he's very fast and physical down the field. He's a great kind of contested catch guy in space. So I like Isaiah Likely. He's great inside the red zone as well. Any team's going to be interesting to see where he lands. I think he's capable of more than the role that Baltimore's really asked him to play. Following Likely is going to be Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, I know he showed a little bit lack of efficiency in 2024, but in 2025 when Bucky Irving was missing time, Rachaad White sneaky looked great. He was averaging over 3.5 per carry and was really good in pass protection. I know he's made his wishes clear that he wants to go to Washington to play with his former college quarterback, Jaden Daniels, at Arizona State. So I think that's where he's going to end up. They could really use kind of more veteran presence in that running back room. Pair him with Bill and maybe Chris Rodriguez as the goal line running back, and then you got Rachaad White in the pass protection third down role. I think that makes a lot of sense for him. And then closing us out is going to be Keenan Allen at number 24, a great veteran wide receiver, a wide receiver 3 if you say. Yes, he kind of fell off the surface as the Chargers continued their season, which as many veterans do. He was great weeks 1 through 8, but it kind of petered out towards the end. I think he's kind of coming to that age cliff where he's nothing more than a third down target. He can't really do it for like 9 or 10 catches a game like he used to in his prime. But I think he's going to draw a lot of interest, not just because of his play, but also like the veteran ability of having him in your wide receiver room is really crucial for these young guys to develop. And if you're any NFL team where you can get him for like $6 or $7 million per year, I think it's worth it to really help him teach and kind of, you want your wide receivers to grow up to be the professional that Keenan really was. So don't be surprised if he has more of a market than you would actually expect. But he's going to close it off for our free agency wide receiver, our overall skill position tiers here, going into the 2026 offseason. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Comment who you want your team to sign, and that is going to do it. And before you go, I would really appreciate if you guys hit the subscribe button. But that is going to do it, and peace.